Hey guys, what's up? And today I'm going to do a review on The Walking Dead Season 2. So, The Walking Dead, the very famous, very popular zombie apocalypse TV show that has gone to shit after Season 7, The Walking Dead. So I'm gonna quickly do a recap of Season 1. Rick is a good guy who woke up from the hospital after getting injured and realized everyone is either dead, alive, or dead and alive at the same time, aka being a walker. Then he finds this team of survivors, and now they're trying to find other survivors and survive. Yeah. Find food, find water, find shelter, kill walkers, avoid them, make friends, and wait until the whole thing is ended, basically. So, in the middle of searching for a new location and new shelter, they got stuck in the middle of the highway because the RV, one of the vehicles, had died. So they stopped there and looted the other cars that were all stuck on the highway, and of course, the walkers, they came. And then they all hid under the cars, and it was actually a really cool scene. You know, don't move a muscle, don't make a noise, don't breathe, and it kind of reminds me of Jurassic Park. And then suddenly, one of the characters in the team of survivors, Sophia, a small, innocent girl, he ran away into the woods beside the highway because she was just too scared of the walkers. So now the team of survivors had to find her, and that is the first troubling plotline of the entire season. But of course, it's The Walking Dead, and they won't solve problems in an episode of time. Neither will they usually solve problems in a matter of season or seasons even. So yeah, you won't expect to see Sophia for quite a number of time. And that's why on episode 1, Sophia wasn't she was gone, okay? She just ran away. But the ending is actually really surprising, and it kind of satisfies me, the ending, although it's a tragic ending. I don't want to spoil it, but it's a really surprising ending. It just happened in a split of a second, and well, that just happened. But overall, I guess this season premiere is really promising, and it can either go and become a super boring season that has no interesting storylines whatsoever, or it could become an even more creative and fun and exciting and thrilling TV show that everyone expected from a zombie apocalypse story. And turns out it's the former one, unfortunately, which kind of applies the first half of the season really well, but also a couple of episodes of the second half of the season. Anyway, moving on to episode 2, Bloodletting. The first half is basically Rick and Shane just, running into a stranger, a doctor, in fact, in the middle of nowhere, trying to help the person who got shot on episode 1 of the season. So, yeah, the RV died, all the vehicles, all the cars died, so they still had to stay and find a shelter, and just so happens they stumbled upon a farm, and it has some good guys in it. It has the very famous Herschel Green, also the very famous Maggie Green, played by Laura Cohen. Laura Cohen, I think it's called. I think she's called. And also a couple of other characters such as Jimmy, Otis, and also importantly Beth. So it is a surprisingly boring episode. Like the first half, I don't know if it's my problem or if it's the episode's story's problem. Like, when I was watching this episode, I almost fell asleep, and it was like 2 years ago, but I almost fell asleep. It was really boring for the first half. Wow, like, so the person who got shot and Rick and Shane just stumbled upon this farm, and they have been trying to get this Dr. Herschel to save this person, while the rest of the team is still, we're still on the highway, just walking around, just not doing anything of importance. And and I don't know what's wrong, but there's this obnoxious wind sound in the background, this sound effect that just keeps going on and on. It's really noisy and annoying, and when someone speaks, this wind noise just abruptly stops and lets this person speak, and after this person's dialogue has finished, the wind sounds continue, and why is that? And yeah, and then for the second half of the episode, Shane and another person, Otis, went out. Just two of them went out to a place called FEMA, as I recalled, to get some medicine, because why not? Because doctors gotta save some people, right? And it didn't really work out. It wasn't as well as they planned. Then it's episode 3, Save the Last One, and Shane is changing. So Dr. Herschel, is still helping the person who got shot. I'll never reveal that to you, just in case, because it's a spoiler. And Sophia was still missing. Still, and everyone's still looking for her out in the woods, near the highway. Not much progress have been made in this episode, except of that Shane and Otis plotline where they had to take medicine from this FEMA facility, and again, walkers came and they were in trouble, but they both somehow escaped. And Shane and Otis, they went out to get some medical supplies, and it didn't go well. So, like, in the midst of panicking, Shane made a very important and lethal decision and left off the episode with an unforgettable ending. And yes, what Shane did is the price of survival. But I guess, yeah, what Shane did is super, like, asshole. Like, he could have done better, but if he didn't do that, again, I'm not gonna reveal what he did because it's a spoiler, but he did a terrible thing. But if he hadn't done that, he would probably die also. So I guess he had his point of view as well. And it's actually a pretty nice episode, not as boring as episode 2, and I expect more. Then the story went on to episode 4, Cherokee Rose, which is basically the lowest IMDb rated episode in this season. It got scored a 7.7. At least this episode got a 7.7 during the times I was watching this episode. So yeah, I didn't expect much from this episode. I was just thinking that it would be even worse than episode 2, and it would be even more boring. And it's actually not that bad of an episode, to be honest. It's not as boring. It actually has some slightly more interesting scenes and storylines. And I don't know if it's because of my mood when I was watching this episode, or is it the writing of the episode. That's usually what people would hold account for an episode's level of entertainment. Although it's still kind of the worst episode so far, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. But yes, in the full picture, it's relatively boring. Again, zero progress have been made. A lot of the scenes in this episode are also filler scenes. We get to learn more about a lot of characters, especially Maggie. Maggie and Glenn, they had a relationship developing, and it is actually kind of interesting what they did. It's actually kind of ridiculous, but it acts as a bit of a comedy in this very dark and depressing TV show, and I actually like that. And this episode also has a pretty nice ending, and a few new storylines are also added. Although those storylines are also kind of cliche compared to other TV shows in the industry during the times. And yeah, more character developments and more storylines. And then there's this one plot line, one storyline in this episode that's just trash. Like it's a filler storyline that doesn't do anything to the full picture or anything. It's basically a walker fell into the well in that farm, and everyone tried to pull that walker up from the well. And again, it didn't end well. Nothing ends well on this show. It's so disgusting and violent. Like, that is the most violent and disgusting TV scene I had seen so far. Do I care to spoil it? Like, this walker, it just split in half in the abdominal part, and all the intestines and organs just spills out. Why? Why do you have to do this to me? Like, when people get stabbed into the chest, or, like shot and shot, it's not that bad, but the guts coming out, I mean, I'm not scared of it. It's just that maybe it's just a little too far. It's not that entertaining. If it's entertaining, if it's guts spilling out, eyeballs gouging out, tongues ripping out, but it's entertaining, maybe it's better. But this scene is just plain disgusting. Over to episode 5, Choppa Cobra. Again, not much happened. Another boring episode. The biggest thing about this episode is basically Daryl falling off a cliff when the horse he was riding stumbled upon a snake in the forest and panicked. And then Daryl saw Merle in his visions. Again, it's very random. Like, Merle was gone since episode 2 of season 1, and then Merle suddenly shows up again. Like, and yeah, but he saw Merle, but it was actually just visions and dreams. Those bits are actually slightly entertaining, but it's also a filler storyline, so not that impressed. And then there's this pregnant storyline that is also not really that interesting. Basically, Lori is pregnant. Lori is Rick's wife, and yeah, she's pregnant, I guess. And Maggie and Glenn, the chemistry between both of them are actually really good, and they are actually a great match, and that's a good thing. But I kind of want a little bit more from that storyline. And there are also storylines such as Carl trying to grow up, trying to be mature and have a gun of his own, which is basically Carl for the rest of the TV show. And also Shane being an asshole, which is basically the rest of the season. And also Beth being suicidal. People are dying. I want to cut myself with a piece of glass shard. I mean, it's very human. This show uses storylines to reflect humanity, but in the most boring way possible. Moving on to episode 6, Secrets. Another boring episode about secrets and how it's not a secret anymore, how everyone learned about it. So yeah, Lori is pregnant. That's the secret. And also another secret, which is there are walkers in the barn in the farm. So there were actually walkers hidden in the barn, and no one knew about it except for Glenn. And yeah, and then there's also the secret where Glenn and Maggie had sex, and Shane and Andrea also had an affair, and that's also a secret. And there's also another secret, which is basically the group, the team of survivors, wanting to leave Herschel's farm because Shane wanted that and explore more. But again, Rick always opposed Shane, which is actually a good thing. Rick is the good guy, Shane is the bad guy. And, leaving the farm, it poses more threat. And this farm, it's probably the best shelter that the team of survivors had ran into so far. And it has been 6 full episodes, and not much crazy things have happened. Characters just continued to be themselves and develop secrets that doesn't necessarily relate to walkers or any other plot lines whatsoever. And I think the biggest problem of the first half of the season is that the characters aren't that interesting. We don't root for them as much. And this fact, plus the fact that the storylines aren't that interesting either, makes for a really boring first half of a season. Like, nothing really hooked me in. But again, it might seem that episode 6 may lead to a way more dramatic next episode. And it leads on to episode 7, pretty much dead already. Finally, after all these episodes, the show finally broke its curse of being boring and make something crazy happen on this episode. And oh boy, Carl started to swear. So you remember the secrets that I've mentioned in episode 6? Well, one of the secrets actually became a problem and led to this crazy, insane scene towards the end of the episode that really wows me, that really impresses me. It didn't blow my mind or anything, but wow, like, that's something, finally. And yeah, finally, I'm gonna give a spoiler alert. It is a super dramatic episode, but also a sad episode. I love this episode, and it's probably the best Walking Dead episode so far. So, this is the spoiler alert. So, as I mentioned on episode 6, there were walkers in the barn, and Shane and everyone else wanted to kill them because keeping them in the farm is not safe. It may actually kill the team of survivors. But at the same time, if they kill them, Herschel might kick them out, and it's not going to be good because they were actually Herschel's friends and family. And Herschel really missed them and wanted to keep them in the barn. And this fact also makes Herschel a better character. Herschel, as always, is one of the most underrated characters of the TV show, by the way. So in the last scene, Shane and everybody just opened up the barn and shot all the walkers inside. And Rick wanted to stop them, but it couldn't be stopped. It already happened. And Herschel was completely heartbroken. He was just shocked. And but they did it so that they can all be safe and continue to find Sophia without having to fear walkers in their own shelter. But as it turns out, Sophia herself had become a walker and was in the barn the whole time. And Rick, he came out from the bunch, he pulled out the gun and just boom, and shot her and killed her, which kind of parallels the little girl from episode 1 of the entire series, which is pretty cool. But wow, yeah, like what they did, they settled down in Herschel's farm just to look for Sophia, and turns out Sophia was in the farm the whole time, and they had to kill her because he had become a walker. So the whole thing is pointless, and that's really tragic and disastrous, and that's the best part of the story. Then it's Episode 8, Nebraska. Again, the first half of the episode is basically the entire team of survivors crying and being sad and mourning, and that's just really boring. I know people need to mourn, people need to cry, but don't make it an entire first half of an episode. Like, don't make it. And don't make it that boring. Like, it's super boring. Like, why? Like, now that I have watched episode 8, like the first half is basically using the last scene of episode 7 as an excuse so that the entire first half of episode 8 is going to be, bland, boring stuff. And the second half is actually pretty okay. Rick went into a bar and found Herschel there, who was heartbroken, heart crushed, and Glenn was there. And then there's this two strangers. There were these two strangers who walked into the bar as well. And what happened was really unexpected and surprising. And however, I don't think it's that necessary to throw in a couple of random characters into the story for the purpose of showing how fierce Rick is, I guess. Then it drags on to episode 9, Triggerfinger. Some people say this episode is boring as shit. Some say it's entertaining, so let's find out. The first half of this episode is basically the aftermath of the second half of last episode, and it's basically Rick, Glenn, Herschel solving the problem they started. And the second half is going to be a completely new storyline, which sets up for the next episode, probably. And then there's this car crash storyline, which, again, doesn't do anything to the full plot, to the full picture, and, yeah, even if it didn't happen, it doesn't do anything to any storyline. It's just unnecessary. And the only difference between this car crash and this car crash not happening is that, Shane being hateable, more or less. So yeah. And the real entertaining bit of this episode is when Rick, Glenn, and Herschel were about to get out of the pub, and the bad guys were actually outside of the pub. But at the end, Rick, Glenn, and Herschel, they somehow escaped. And then there's this kid who, again, he pierced his leg into a fence. And he got stuck there with an entire piece of metal going right through its leg. And Rick didn't want to leave him there. It's kind of cruel to leave him there. So Rick took him and brought him back to Herschel's farm. And this kid is called Randall. His name is Randall. But overall, it's a really boring episode, so yeah. Past that, moving on to episode 10, 18 Miles Out. And it's probably the best episode since Pretty Much Dead already. Real drama really heats up on this episode. So previously, all those secrets and drama bullshit, it doesn't lead up to something more dramatic. It doesn't build up to a solid conclusion, and they weren't that interesting either. But this time, Shane and Rick had friction, and the whole Shane versus Rick storyline actually built up to an intense scene. So honestly, the sequence where Rick and Shane were fighting walkers were really good, but it's chopped up to many different pieces. It's very choppy and jumpy, and that is one bad thing about that sequence. So overall, it's a pretty good episode. Not gonna lie, it's decent. Then the story went on to episode 1, Judge, Jury, Executioner. So they went back to the farm, and Randall was a prisoner, and they wanted to kill him, but some people also didn't want to kill him because, A, he might be a threat to all the team survivors, but B, it's cruel. It's really cruel. And then we have this storyline where Carl was just being super rude and offensive, and he was trying to be mature and like an adult, which he tries to be for the rest of the TV show. And the episode overall is quite entertaining, but yeah, Shane's personality has gotten really worse and worse every episode, and this builds up for a crazy ending for the season, and I kind of like that storyline actually. And the ending, wow, it's another sad and tragic ending that just surprised me a lot because I didn't see it coming, and it's really sudden. It's a really sudden thing, and I actually like it, and I think it's a good episode. Going on to episode 12, Better Angels. Oh, wow. Shit. After what happened last episode, it's already devastating enough, and the people didn't mourn about it that much for an entire episode. Like, after episode 7, everyone was just, near death. But after what happened on episode 1, I guess people were really sad about it, but the show didn't show that this time, so it's way better. And the pace started to pick back up in the second half of the episode. Shane took Randall out in the woods, telling him how much he was done with the group, and things suddenly happened, and I wasn't totally sure about what happened. But as the episode progresses, the puzzle started to fall into place, and we realize it's all a ruse. It's all just a throw-off. And there was an epically tragic ending, and I just really loved this episode. But this episode also got me kind of worried because if this episode is already the climax of the season, what will be in the last episode? What will be in the season finale? So I'm also really curious. Moving on to the last episode, Beside the Dying Fire. I thought the last episode is already dramatic and devastating enough, but this episode is even more destructive and crazy. So I'm just gonna throw in a spoiler alert. After Rick had killed Shane, the gunshot had attracted a lot of walkers, which overran the farm, and most people escaped, while some people had unfortunately died. So first of all, let's talk about Shane's death. Wow, that's unexpected. I know Shane's gonna die before I even watched the TV show. But still, Shane using Randall as an excuse to lure Rick to him is just, wow, it's just really evil. And what Rick did to Shane at the end of the fight is also really unexpected. Shane was about to, Shane pretended to be nice towards the end of the fight and sort of apologized to Rick and wanted to hug Rick. And of course, Shane wanted to kill Rick at that moment and pull out a knife, just stabbing him. But, nope. Rick killed him first. And that's really surprising. And Carl saw that. And Carl was shocked. And that was really emotional. And then into episode 13, the first half of the episode was like a war between humans and walkers. And the walkers overran Herschel's farm, and a lot of people escaped. And we see Glenn in a car, just standing up inside a car and just sticking out his rifle out from the window and just shooting walkers, and that is a really cool move. And we also see Rick and Carl escape, and it's really intense and emotional. And then Andrea was left out, and I was really worried about her. Like, she was left out. All the survivors had gone, and Andrea was ignored. And it's really bad. And then this person in a black hoodie pulling two walkers beside her saved Andrea. And I think this puts Walking Dead into another level of fiction, which is not necessarily bad. In fact, I think it's really good, and I think it sets up for a lot of the plot in season 3, and that is a pretty smart move in my opinion. But towards the end, everyone just disliked Rick. At least that's my speculation, and it's just sad. I'm still on Rick's side, although he may seem like a jerk at the end. He act like the next villain. So yeah, the writing of the finale is really good. It's emotional, and the cinematography of this episode is actually better than all previous episodes of the season. Just a side note. So yeah, overall, The Walking Dead Season 2 is a roller coaster of boring and dramatic moments, just constantly switching from boring to crazy, to boring to crazy. And there are some really boring episodes that just drags on and on with some filler storyline that aren't even interesting at all. But there were also a lot of great scenes in this season as well. Like, one of the biggest problems of this season is the characters. They're not memorable or special enough, and that's why we don't root for them that much. And yeah, overall, it's not that impressive of a season, but the story is actually okay. And Frank Darabont, the original showrunner of The Walking Dead, had departed from The Walking Dead, so I think there is a huge change in style now that we have a different producer and head writer for the season. Again, Andrew Lincoln's performance, really good. Other people's performances, still okay, decent, I guess. And in this season, the walkers weren't the biggest problem. The biggest problem were the humans itself, which is also a really smart idea. But I just hope that it's executed in a more interesting and engaging and reflective manner. But overall, it's it it's a good season. You know, it's okay. It's not great. It's not that good, but it's okay. The worst episode is Cherokee Rose, and the best is beside the dying fire. I am saying that The Walking Dead Season 2 is a nice try, I guess, and I'm giving it a 6 to a 7 out of 10. So, have you watched The Walking Dead Season 2? From 1 to 10, how much would you rate it? Like if you like it, hate if you hate it, and subscribe if you want more. And damn, I'm really tired right now for speaking that much. My tongue is tired, and I want to sleep. I just want to sleep.